If we live in a simulation, that means everything outside of our solar system is an illusion. But various renditions of the saying, so it is in heaven, then so it is below, have constantly been reiterated by the divinely connected, such as prophets and psychics, for thousands of years. This saying is one of those concepts that resonates deeply with most who hear it. Indeed, the stars that surround our planet were not randomly generated and have a great deal of meaning. You have heard of the zodiac before, but do you actually know what it means? Where the terminology came from? Through the power of this program, you can actually fully understand this, which is fundamentally required for understanding scientific astrology. Our solar system is the planets that orbit the sun. As you can see, it exists in a plane. The plane that travels through these constellations of our zodiac. When you look at our solar system around these constellations, you can see that there's plenty of other constellations in the sky than just the ones of our zodiac. So what is it that makes our zodiac important, that people have been talking about it since the foundation of humanity? First, let's look for the first sign in our zodiac. Aries, right here. The reason why our zodiac is important to us compared to all the other signs in our zodiac is because it exists on the same plane as our solar system. So starting here, you could see Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries again. That is where the signs of our zodiac come from. Now you can actually understand. So when astrologers say that a sign, that the sun is in a sign, that you were born in Aries or you were born in Pisces, what it means is that from our perspective, the sun is in between a sign and Earth. That's all it means. And this is changing every 30 days. And other signs, when they say that Mars is in Taurus, what it means is that from our perspective, from Earth's perspective actually, which we can change to, that Mars is in between. So why does any of this matter? Well, if you consider that Earth probably is a simulation, and everything outside of our solar system is an illusion, which means that there's no faraway planets with intelligent life on it. Instead, there's other universes in other simulations with intelligent life on it. But that doesn't mean that this is all random, that these constellations mean nothing, because clearly they'd mean a lot. The zodiac is actually a mathematical formula that can be visually identified in the heavens above. It is a circular 360-degree elliptical our sun travels through, from our perspective, on a yearly basis. The 360 degrees are divided by the 12 zodiac signs. The sun stays in each sign for approximately 30.5 degrees, or days. If we assume that we are in a simulation, the 12 zodiac signs are each an archetype of energy that influences the Earth. So let me just take you to my chart. I made this chart. So basically, I don't know how to control this. And I don't think you can see my cursor, which kind of sucks. Can you see my cursor? I don't know. When you look at Aries, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign. Taurus, next, is brown because it's an earth sign. Gemini is air. Cancer is water. This pattern goes around. Now, Aries and Leo are both fire signs, but they're different kinds of fire signs. Aries, being the first archetype of the zodiac, is youth, energy, war, leadership. Leo, being an older archetype, because this is the youngest archetype and Leo is the older archetype, is more of a loyal type of fire energy, romantic, deeper. This one might be more shallow, but more energy. And then Sagittarius, kind of going along the same lines as those two signs, also a fire sign, but being the oldest of the fire signs, is less emotional, has more conviction, more creativity. And each of these has a strength and a purpose and value to life, and none is more valuable to life on earth than any other. This is the same with every sign. So fire is kind of known as war signs. Earth is family, creation, life. And by creation, I mean creation of life. Earth is like a solid foundation, and they're very much so family signs. Taurus is the sign of romance. Virgo is the sign of motherhood and child rearing, which can go in a lot of ways. Just because your sign is in Virgo doesn't mean that all you care about is being a mother, but it can mean that you care a lot about being a teacher of the youth. Capricorn is like the leader. The steadfast goat is just goes along the same lines of those. It's more of a lead by example and exist as a father figure. Then there's air signs. Air signs are spontaneity, mixing things up, fast paced. So Gemini is kind of the sign of acting, which is experimentation. Libra is a sign of balance, which is judgment. Aquarius is a sign of adventure, which is moving on and letting things go. Those are the air signs. So you can see they kind of have the same style and purpose, which is very different from earth and very different from fire. But on each of those signs, they also have their own purpose too. Finally, there's water signs, which is Cancer. So water signs are extremely creative and very dreamy, lost in thought, very big picture. So they're very opposite from fire in a way that essentially fire is more in the moment and action in the present and being aware of what's going on right now, while water is very much so philosophy, thinking about the bigger picture, and thinking about the future. And fire is more thinking about the now. And also maybe the past, because it's kind of learning from mistakes, while water is more like disregard the past and think about the future. Cancer is, once again, the younger the sign, the more romantic they are, because the earlier they are in the life cycle of they want to create something. So they bring in an energy of sparking that. So Cancers are known as hopeless romantics. Scorpio is kind of more of a jaded sign, and it tends to have a really bad reputation. but that doesn't mean that they're a bad reputation. It just means that they have a lot of energy, but they can also, once spited, they dwell kind of that stalker-esque uh, reputation where they can be very obsessive over the things that they love for a long time, but they can also be extremely passionate and creative and inspired by their muses. Finally, Pisces, the oldest sign, also a water sign, is extremely creative, less interested in romance, and very philosophical, very artistic. But all water signs are very philosophical and artistic. I'm just saying that of the three, they're the least interested in romance. That's just kind of how the cycle goes because it is a life cycle based thing. It's youth versus old. So that's basically explaining astrology. So we talk about, now that we have an understanding of what the signs mean and the cycle of the signs and the patterns that exist in those archetypes, when you see that Earth, when the sun is between a sign and Earth, what it means is the energy of that sign is being pulled to Earth. When somebody is born into that energy, it's because their soul identifies so much with that energy that the soul tends to choose to be born into that energy. That means that you can be a different sign born under the wrong sign, but most people are kind of born into their sign. And it's not that the sign creates them because reincarnation is a thing. It's that the time that they're meant to be born is influenced by their soul. It's not the other way around. The soul isn't influenced by the sign. The soul is born, tends to be born under its sign. Now this also has to do with the eastern horizon. The rising sign is actually more important than the sun sign that you're born into, which means the time of birth. And we'll get into that probably on another day. This lecture is really basic. So right now you can see, like in this example, you can see how fast time is going here. This would be the sun is under Aquarius, which we talked about. This means that everybody on Earth at the same time is kind of going through a yearly cycle of feeling like, okay, the sun is in Aquarius. That's the spring, usually around late February, early March. That's when everybody is kind of like, I want to change, right? We go into Pisces and maybe they took some drastic action. They asked for a divorce. They quit their job or whatever. They learned some lessons from taking that action. They go into Pisces and now they're feeling a little bit philosophical. Maybe they regret taking that action because they don't have the energy of that air sign anymore. And maybe they're learning a lesson from taking that action. And they're reflecting, maybe they're grieving, maybe they're processing the emotions of the fallout of what they learned from taking some action and how it affected friends and family around them and how they reacted and who's really loyal to them, who's not. Now we move on, and now we're in Aries, and everybody's sick of reminiscing, except for people that are actually Pisces because they're always reminiscing. But now we're into Aries, and it's a fire sign, and it's a fuck whatever mistake we made in February, fuck whatever reminiscing we made in March. Now we're in fire, now we're in action, now we're in I just got that job or I just got a new girlfriend and I'm moving on. That's the cycle that I'm talking about of energy that we're all experiencing. And this is why the zodiac does resonate with people. But there's this thing called the precession of the equinox. So basically when Western philosophers in Greece first started to document how the zodiac influenced personalities and influenced the energy of people around them, was 2,000 years ago. There's a thing called precession of the equinox, which means that our zodiac shifts by 1 degree. So basically, around us, this elliptical is also turning from our perspective because of the way that the Earth's axis is tilted. So to us, there's an illusion of this also turning. So because of that, every 72 years, it changes by 1 degree. So since then, it's off by 22 days. So that's just something that people can't get over for some reason, and that's why there's a difference between tropical astrology, which is based on where the zodiac actually is, and Western astrology, which is based on where it was 2,000 years ago when people first started trying to define the archetypes of energy. That's all it is. But by real, I mean like genuine astrology, and considering that we're in a simulation and that it probably does have an effect on the energy of the simulation to spark action and to spark cycles of activity that result in evolution and development of souls and reality. Is based on where it actually is, because it is something that is constantly shifting. So, but it is shifting in a cycle that also repeats every, what is it, 170,000 years or something like that. But it doesn't matter. So, anyways, so that basically ends our introduction to what astrology is and visually understanding it. The second part of this lecture is first I did want to bring up one thing. Simulation theory kind of goes hand in hand with flat earth theory in that if we're in a simulation, there's no reason for there to be another planet with intelligent life on it in this universe. If the planet in the universe that created the simulation that Earth is running on wanted to run an experiment with a different species of animal under different laws of physics, under different requirements, there's no reason for that to also happen in our universe. So, most likely, if we're in a simulation, then we are the only intelligent life in this universe. Our planet is the only planet that matters in the universe. If that's the case, that's kind of what flat earth argues, and that's the concept that the Bible is arguing, is that the earth is the center of the universe, even if it's not actually the center of the universe. Because if it's a simulated universe, it's the only planet in the universe that matters right now. That doesn't mean that they couldn't expand the universe and develop it and add a planet and go back in time and say that that planet, when it gets added, has been here all along. That could happen at any time. They could update it and say that a planet that's had no contact with us is added to our simulation if they wanted to have aliens interacting with Earth for some reason. But since that hasn't happened, since we aren't in contact, we do seem to be in contact with aliens, but they're probably interdimensional. Besides the point. All I like to do is show people that Earth being the center of the universe is also a matter of perspective, because if you look at it, look, the sun is going around Earth. The whole universe is going around Earth. Everything is spinning around Earth when it's from the perspective of Earth. That's the only point I like to make. So you can change perspectives to say that the Earth is going around the sun. You could change your perspective to say that the sun is going around the Earth. It doesn't really matter. So that's all we have in this program. And that just kind of explains this whole theory. So finally, we're going to move on to the Goetia. And I introduced the concept of oh my god, I wasn't even showing it during that. So this is the whole perspective change. This is the Earth going around the sun. If we pause it, this is when you change the perspective. This is the sun going around Earth. It's just a matter of perspective. Right, we get that. And this is the sun going through various signs. So, when we talk about uh, um, basically, this is all leading up to the theories on the Goetia. So, if we assume that Earth is a simulation, my goal for several years has been to discover who manages the simulation, how that team is organized, what rules they have to follow, and what their goals with their simulation are. Much of the occult and esoteric is based on the Ars Goetia, which was originally documented by King Solomon. King Solomon was a king of Jerusalem who had a reputation of being the wisest king of all time in 900 BCE. But known to the occult world, he's also known as the first person to, not the first person, but the most famous person to document, explore, investigate, and research the Ars Goetia, which is a system of demonic royalty. So, or daemonic, if you don't want to use the bastardized term. So, um, what King Solomon is most famous for in the Bible is the story of the two women who were fighting over a baby. One of the women, or the woman came to King Solomon, and at the time kings were considered judges, and they had a dispute, and they had a case where the two women said that they both had given birth to a newborn baby. And King Solomon listened to both women argue, and then he said, "Stop arguing. I'm just going to cut the baby in half and give each of you one half of the baby." One of the women said, "Fine, cut the baby in half. I'm happy with that." The other woman said, "Please don't cut the baby in half. It's not my baby. She can have the baby." And that's how we figured out that the second woman was the one who had given birth to the baby, and it was her baby because she would never let her baby get killed, while the first woman was just trying to steal the baby out of spite for some petty personal reason. That's a very famous story. It's also a very simple story and shows how much humans have developed since then, because our court cases aren't that simple anymore. And it's also kind of funny because King Solomon is known as this very, very wise king, but this is also 900 years BCE when humanity was like archaic and very undeveloped compared to what they are now. So, um, in esoteric circles, again, what Solomon is most famous for is investigating the Ars Goetia, learning the names of every royal daemon, organizing them from the first to the 72nd, and learning their natures and purposes. He used demons for learning new abilities like how to speak in different languages, how to perform art, visual, musical, engineering, mining, seeing into the future and the past, performing miracles, necromancy, uh, healthcare, interpersonal skills and communication, warfare, and more. He is widely known for utilizing daemons to have a reputation of the most learned, hardworking, and wisest king. Some stories are exaggerated, saying he enslaved the demons to build his grand temple, among many other accomplishments. The reason why they have an importance in regards to the zodiac is that all demons are available 24/7. However, every demon is at its strongest for 20 minutes once a day. Now, I have to add a caveat. This is my theory on this, not only based on my own experiences with the Goetia, but also just because they've already been given a degree of the zodiac, as you can see here. So, Baal, the first demon of the zodiac is 0 to 4 degrees of Aries. The second one, the second demon of the Goetia is Agaris, 5 to 9 degrees of Aries. Visago is 10 to 14 degrees of Aries. Marvis is 20 to 24 degrees of Aries. Amon is 0 to 4 degrees of Taurus. So if we go back to our other program, and we look at Earth, and we switch to this view, what it means is that when a sign is on the eastern horizon, from our perspective on Earth, which changes every 20 minutes, well, the sign changes once an hour, approximately, because the signs aren't perfect size. But basically, the sign that's on the eastern horizon, and what degree into that sign it is, approximately, like, say we're halfway through about the amount of space Virgo takes, this is 15 degrees into Virgo. So that means that the sign that is most powerful in the middle of, or the demon that is most powerful in the 15 degrees into Virgo is the moderator of Earth at that time. Is the way I like to describe it, is that demons are basically moderators, or the lowest in the hierarchy of specialists that supervise the Earth experiment and listen to prayers and observe behavior to see what changes need to be made to the simulation live. And you can communicate to them directly, but most of the time they work on their own accord doing their own thing. And everybody is also influenced by a demon based on the exact time that they're born. Like if you were born in the year 2095 at 20 o'clock p.m. on February 25th, then you would be born in the middle of, with this sign on the eastern horizon. This is called the rising sign in traditional astrology. And this sign would be Furfur. The demon in charge right now would be Furfur, which just means that you would have a very strong connection to Furfur for that life. So, as you can see, this is changing. Go back in time. Go to actual time. Right now, the sign on the eastern horizon is Libra. And this is just changing constantly. If we go forward a little bit. This is the part of the zodiac that's kind of hard to explain. So this is Pisces on the eastern horizon in the morning. So we can fast forward. And tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Well, let's see. 6:30 a.m. Pisces on the eastern horizon. And 6:30 Pisces on the eastern horizon. It's a daily thing. 24 hours loop. So when I explain, so going back to this, demons have a negative connotation, and that's because they're like lesser gods. And so when I say that they're also the closest vibrational frequency to humanity, and because humans are organic incarnal beings, they have sex drives, they have desire for power and desire for all these things that cause them to commit evil acts on Earth. And since demons are our closest vibrational frequency to humanity and the easiest to communicate with us, they get a bad rap because of us. That doesn't mean that demons are the ones corrupting humanity and making humans evil. That's just an easy scapegoat that humanity uses. But another reason why demons have a bad reputation from humanity is because of how war used to be waged. Um, you talk about like the priests of Baal. Baal is a demon. He was also the king of, what's it called? Rome versus Africa. Baal. I can't remember. Carthage, right? So Baal was the god of Carthage, and to Baal and to Carthage, Baal was Allah, Baal was Yahweh, Baal was Anu, Baal was Zeus. Baal was their god. Okay? It was their one, but he was just a moderator that was in power for 20 minutes a day. Nonetheless, very powerful to them. Because he must have done some miracles or done something to make those people really appreciate and worship Baal. Now, Baal and Rome were hated each other. I mean, Carthage and Rome have hated each other for a long time. So one of the things that the reason why pagans got such a bad rap was because it's easy to attack people's religions when you want to come up with excuses to wage war and to destroy them. And they said that Baal was an evil god. I don't want to get into all the details, but basically, if you demonize a different country's god, then it's easy to convince people to take up arms to go destroy that country, which is exactly what Rome did with Baal. So that's part of the reason why these daemons, which thousands of years ago were considered lesser gods by pagans universally around the world, have now been demonized into a horror story delusion of pure evil that you can't even consider thinking about because it will somehow corrupt you and turn you into a monster, will possess you and destroy your life, which isn't true. It all stems from the way that people used to demonize different groups of people around the world, would demonize each other's religions to convince people in their own country to risk their lives and to sacrifice their bodies and to sacrifice years of their life and to risk dying just to go across the world and kill complete strangers that had no actual impact on their day-to-day lives. It's the same thing that these Spaniards from Spain, which were white people, but did when they went to South America and demonized the gods that South Americans were worshiping by saying that they were demanding they sacrifice children to those gods and that they're not really gods and that they're evil demons that aren't logical and that we need to kill everybody that won't stop worshiping those gods. That's what that all stems from. But in reality, there's a lot more nuance to what those religions were trying to do. When you look at South America, they have rituals such as when somebody is born to be in, if I'm very vague about explaining it, the whole premise of what some of those things were based on was if somebody was selected to be sacrificed in one of those countries to their god, what it really was they might notice a child is communicating with the gods and has a very strong connection to this other dimension that developed Earth. None of these things are concepts that people can really understand at the time. It's very grand and mysterious and grandiose and spiritual and special when you have a prophet that has a very strong connection to the other dimension before we have technology to even have a grasp or understanding of what's really going on. But they just have a very direct connection with the spiritual world. So when they noticed that there was a very special child like that, what they found was that if they threatened that special child or the virgin or the prophet, um, if they threatened that person's life, the gods would go out of their way to protect that human. So some of these rituals were experiments to say, we're going to foster this connection that this person has. We're going to take care of all their needs. They're going to live a life of luxury. They're going to have all the food and water and shelter that they need, and they're going to be allowed to paint and meditate and sing and dance and commune with the gods and do what they want for their entire life until their 25th birthday. And then on their 25th birthday or their 15th birthday or their 10th birthday, whatever it was, they're going to live this amazing life, and the gods are going to love them, and they're going to love the gods, and they're going to have this really special connection. But then we're going to take them up to the top of this altar, and we're going to say to the gods, now, we have your special child here, and show yourself. Prove to us that you're there, and stop us from killing them, or we're going to kill them. And so some of these rituals started out with literally, we're going to cut their heart out in front of you to see if the gods are going to intervene. So a lot of the time it was trying to force those gods to intervene. And who knows, maybe every single time they went to do one of those rituals, they cut the kid's heart out, and then time got reversed back a day before that on a loop until everybody realized that that child could not be killed because the gods actually were protecting them. We don't really know what happened, but maybe some of the times the kid was actually growing up to become a pedophile that had no connection with the gods and wasn't meditating and wasn't communing with them. And so when they went up to get sacrificed, they got sacrificed because the gods didn't care, right? We don't know what those religions were actually practicing or what they were doing, but it wasn't completely illogical, and it wasn't completely savage and barbaric and had no meaning. There's all of those rituals, and I'm being very, very vague and not getting into specifics because I haven't done research on them lately to be able to give you more precise examples. But a lot of these people didn't have very good writing systems, or if they had good writing systems, it wasn't written in clay tablets, it wasn't written in stone, so it's been lost and it's been retold and retold, and since then it's been corrupted because these Spaniards came in and said, you guys are sacrificing young people to gods, that's pure evil, and now we have a very good excuse to ravage and pillage your town and to stop these terrible horrific rituals, so that way we can now take all the gold back to our king, and he'll give us more boats so we can come back and rape and pillage and take more and do more things and feel more accomplished. That's it is what it boils down to. But what I'm trying to say is that these are the reasons why gods in other people's religions have been demonized. It's not because those demons were evil, and it's not because those demons ever asked for those sacrifices to be made. It's because people come in and they manipulate the story, and they bastardize the story, and the victors tell the story in whatever way they want to. And the truth hasn't been lost to time, because all of these things that happen that I'm describing were observed externally by these demons, and they know exactly the truth of what happened every one of those scenarios, and it's very interesting things to talk to them about. And what I'm telling you is that you don't have to be afraid of talking to them about these stories and learning the truth about the history of humanity, the history of actual spiritual practice and experimentation, and the actual purpose of the world that we live in. Another reason why demons have been demonized by the Catholic Church is because, as I said, demons are more readily available to communicate to than angels. Demons, because there's more of them, because they're at a closer vibrational frequency to Earth, so you don't have to be in a very strong trance to do it. So it's easier to communicate with demons. And leaders in places like Catholic churches and stuff like that demonize demons and say, oh, you cannot talk to them because you can't handle it, it'll drive you crazy, and they'll force you to go and kill your family and things like that. Not true. That's something that is very, very is a flaw homicidal instincts is a flaw to organic life on Earth. It's not something that is an issue in in the planet that created ours, which is Nibiru, right? The planet that created ours has a different laws of physics. I think the lifespan there is like 140 million years. Like they live 140 million Earth years. That is so hard for a human to understand what it's like to live that long, where you're basically immortal compared to what we live here. There's still death there, but it's such a long lifespan. I think it's actually like 140,000 years. It doesn't matter. Like, because the positions of, like, say, Anu is the creator god of Earth. If the original Anu has died 140,000 Earth years ago, even though he was put in charge of the project of Earth 200,000 years ago, but he died 60,000 years ago because their lifespan is 140,000 years. These are very specific things, but basically, he's been replaced by somebody else who is also called Anu to us, and has a very similar personality and an archetype and everything, because it's a different laws of physics, it's a different universe, and the reasons why Earth exists are hard to explain. So, I mean, it's an experiment, and it's the same reason why we're experimenting with AI, right? Which is a lot of reasons. But going back to everything I've said, I just want to explain some more, because I have lost friends for just simply saying, oh, I'm interested in the Ars Goetia, and then I literally just never even say demons. I'm just like, angels. I invoked angels. Like, yeah, I do invoke angels, but it's harder to invoke angels because they're busy and they don't want to deal with really basic stuff like just getting a grasp on understanding the purpose of our universe and why we exist. Like, those kinds of questions, angels don't want to be the ones answering them at all. So part of the reason why you have organizations like the Catholic Church saying that you're not allowed to talk to demons is because we can talk to demons, we can handle it, and you can't. And when you cut people off spiritually from being able to talk to you directly, this is something that also happens in Islam. It happens in every major religion. That's basically a corporation, because it's a soulless corporation, and they want to control the means to protection. That's the kind of the thing about human egregores of power, which is like the Pope and whatever Islam. Anybody that says that you shouldn't explore some sort of spiritual phenomena because it's dangerous to you and tries to scare you out of it. I mean, in Islam, they literally are saying you're not allowed to read the Quran. These are the people that I'm talking. It's not all of Islam. I'm saying there's specific spiritual leaders that say you're not smart enough to handle reading the Quran directly. Let me read it for you and then tell you what you need to take from it, what you need to learn from it. That's in Islam. In Catholicism, it's the same concept. It's you're not uh you're not you're not smart enough to handle you're not smart enough to handle I hate that it's not full screen. It doesn't matter. You're not smart enough to handle talking to demons. We'll talk to the demons, and they do, right? You have exorcists talking to demons for you. Their entire library in Rome, where they have all these books that we're not allowed to read, is all them saying, we have all the power, we have direct access to the place that created Earth, and you don't get to have access to it, and we're going to make you afraid of having access to it. But this has only been a thing for a few hundred years, and it doesn't have to be a thing any longer. You don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to assume that communicating with the spiritual world, which will always start with communicating with demons because they're the easiest ones to talk to, and if you want to learn how to get into a trance to communicate with them, because yeah, talking to angels is better, but it's more advanced. That's what I'm saying. They're trying to gatekeep you away from that. It's you're better off talking to angels because you're going to get better, more advanced information, but you have everybody else to start with demons. So if they cut you off from demons, then they cut you off from angels and they cut you off from God. So we have to undemonize the demons and we have to get rid of that, or you're going to remain cut off from God and you're going to remain cut off from understanding what anything is going forward. And atheism is the same thing. It's just a delusion that is a consequence to that style of manifest destiny. That's all. So that's all that this video is having to do with. I've explained, I've introduced astrology, and I've introduced the Goetia, and that was the purpose of today. So that's all I'm going to talk about, and goodbye.